All right, so your home's been sitting on the market a little over 30 days and you're beginning to ask yourself, is there something wrong with the market? Is there something wrong with my house? Or is there something wrong with the real estate agent that I'm working with? Well, in this video, we're going to talk through a couple of the key things that we're advising our clients on in order to be able to win in this shifting market. Hey everybody, I'm Bill Stewart with the Bill Stewart Homes Team here at Remax Moves. And I just wanted to talk through a couple of different things as we are moving out of the summer market and having conversations with both sellers that were either on the market, came off, and are still looking to try to get, re-strategize their property, or even with clients that we've had that have been sitting on the market a little bit longer than what they expected, when they hit the market, to at that point kind of advise and help to kind of realign them or help them navigate this market, because we have definitely seen a shift. There's less buyers in the marketplace right now than there have been, like in previous years. Even though we've seen a higher unit count of homes sold, we've seen a flood of inventory that's hit the market. So, almost 40% more inventory hit the market, over the summer than we did, say, compared to last year. Buyers are definitely being impacted. Interest rates have stayed at or over 6.7, 6, I think we've just started to get into the 6.5, 6, under 6.5. The other is that prices have continued to move up, in terms of like year over year, we're still up about 4%. And the idea that they also have a lot more choices to choose from this year compared to other years. So at that point, like, they not only have choice, but they also have time. And so, I would say that there are still a lot of interested parties that would potentially be buyers if the perfect storm of low interest rates, lower prices, and everything happening, that they would jump in. But the reality is that in the market that we're in right now, we have to look at the challenges head on and have strategic conversations in order to be able to stand out, because there are people that are still winning in this market. And we've been very fortunate to be able to navigate our clients this year, even, several of them going into multiple offer situations, just by how we are aligning the property and price to where market is. So, when we start talking about list price, we're going to start price first, because honestly, when we start talking about marketing, a lot of the conversations are focused in and around how we're going to, from an outward outreach, how we're going to promote a property when it goes online. And I think promotion is a great aspect, and we do a lot from a promotion standpoint, whether it be print, digital, phone calls. I mean, we're a very active team. However, what the challenge is that if at the end of it, the price of what you're trying to promote is not in alignment with where the market is able to bear, all of those efforts go for nothing. And it's actually a waste of time. It's a waste of money. It's really nothing other than vanity for in my opinion. But the reality is, like, if you promote a product that is in alignment and well, if not slightly underpriced, then at that point, like, you have a much stronger position and a much stronger product to promote. And we see that we're getting a lot more interest and hits from that strategy versus, but focusing in on how are we going to price. So when we're looking at pricing, what is it? We want to, having our product that we want to be able to make sure that we are appealing to a marketplace that, and that point standing out and becoming an obvious choice. So understand, you have to look at, it's a product that you're selling. And I think that sometimes it's the first thing is to step back and to take the emotional tie to that property out of it. I will admit, I love our house. Like, there's a lot of things about it that were appealing to us when we purchased it. As I look at how I would price my home if I were going to put it on the market, there are a lot of times I'm getting caught up in they sold but they were on this side of the road. They were here, they were there. The reality is, I don't know if I'm necessarily the right person to price my own home. I would probably want, I want a second opinion. So when we're looking at it, is being able to take a step back and truly critically analyze the competition of what you're looking for. And I'll hear a lot of times where it's like, well, so-and-so down the street sold their house. They sold at X square footage. They sold at X price. And I just, I think that that's great. But when did they sell? what did they have that was different, not knowing a lot about that property outside of, photos and things like that. What was it that appealed to buyers? The other was, you may see it as they sold at such price. When you actually dig into what happened, did they sell at that price? Did they sell below? Did they have to give some sort of concession to the buyer, whether it be in closing cost or repairs? Were there other things that came up where at the end of it, maybe they sold at a price, but what would they actually net at the end? And I think that that's sometimes one of the harder things to understand. What was their journey like? Because there may be things that were not necessarily disclosed through the transaction. You see the sales price, but there was $25,000 somewhere else that was being given in order to be able to make that deal work. So I think it's important that you take a step back and take a look at it's not about your neighbor and it's not about anybody else. It's going to be about your property and your journey and what are you looking to accomplish from that journey. So when you're analyzing price, I like comps from a baseline. It gives me a good idea. I'll have conversations where sellers will say, we have an appraisal and the appraisal came in at $650,000. Well, the reality is the appraisal is a great number that allows us to know what a bank is willing to lend on that property. But a bank's not going to give you $650,000 just out of nowhere. They're going to need that's a number that says, if a buyer were willing and able to pay, we would be able to do this. Or you're refinancing your house. And so at that point, we're willing to give you up to a certain number based on that appraisal rate. But I just think that sometimes when we're looking at things like appraisals, Zestimates, all of these are all great general numbers, but if you went to market with that number, chances are that you could potentially, you might get it, but reality is that it doesn't always typically work out that way. So I think it's looking at your total available market, who's in and around you, how much inventory is going to have similar features, things like bedrooms, bathrooms, square footage, and really truly critically analyzing. In fact, I would say go out to open houses and take a look at different properties that may fit similar to where you are. Take a look at what they've done. What condition is that property in? What updates or upgrades or additions have they made to those properties that don't necessarily translate into the overall square footage of the house, but that it's a feature and benefit that might appeal to a buyer? Why would they pay more for this versus that? And if you are checking the boxes, kind of like the Benjamin Franklin approach, you checking off your pros and cons, the idea that if you really take a look at it, sometimes you'll find that honestly, we probably should not price ourselves in that category because we would not be able to compete. And we're telling sellers all the time, when you go to market, you're either selling your home or you're helping to sell somebody else's, because you just become another home that's evaluated in the process that then either justifies a decision for your property or justifies their decision for another property. So I think it's important that, you really are looking at that. The other is buyers are not willing to take on, home repairs and still pay the top dollar for a property. We talk with sellers all the time where I'm like, hey, we might need to look at painting. We might need to look at, like replacing carpet, those kinds of things. And a lot of times the pushback is, well, we can just give a credit if a buyer wants to come in, still wanting to be able to maintain top dollar pricing. Well, let me tell you, it's not working. It does not work that way. We just spent literally like the last 2 weekends working with a client, helping to get their landscaping put together, as well as like moving furniture out. We've got cleaners coming. We've got, a carpet guy coming out. There's a lot of things that need to do as we prepare this house. It's taking about, 10 days for us to get the entire project organized, coordinated, and put together. But our conversation with this client was, we're not going to be able to get the price point of where you want to go without putting some work and effort into it. Because buyer walks in and sees dirty carpet immediately, that showing is probably going to last 5-10 minutes. They're going to be on to the next, and your house is going to be forgotten. So that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to do all this work. But if you're chasing after a number, the idea is then at that point, we need to be realistic that if I don't want to change the carpet, great, then I'm going to have to reduce the price. If I don't want to paint the house, I'm going to have to then at that point, make an evaluation on what that's going to cost somebody and then adjust the price. We also hear sometimes when we're talking to people where their comments are, well, we'll just tell them that we're going to offer a credit. even when we were able to put credits into the MLS, I didn't see that as a very strong position statement, because at the end of it, it still boils down to, I'm having to make an offer at 330. You're offering me $5,000, in repairs. But at that point, when the buyer comes in and says it's either one of two things, I don't want to pay 330. 5,000 is not going to be enough for me. I'm still having to finance 330, and then at that point, I'm getting this $5,000 credit. But really, what I want is something that's going to be turnkey. And when we look at the 60% of homes that have gone to the market, or 55% this year that have gone to the market and sold within 30 days, one of the key themes of why those homes sold so quickly and at the highest possible price is because the house was turnkey and buyers didn't have to do anything for it. So not to say that not all buyers are like that. Price will obviously motivate people, where I can say to myself, I'll update the kitchen countertops because I'm getting such a great deal on this property. So it's just evaluating whether or not it's worth it to do the work. Will you get the return? And I think that that's where ultimately, leading to the last point, making sure that you're hiring the right agent to be able to help support, or the team around you, not just the agent, but also vendors and things like that. If you're doing repairs, and that at that point, putting together but having a real estate agent where you can ask a question where, what would it actually take? This is a question that a lot of times people are going to ask and they don't like the answer to. But the idea is, I think that you have to evaluate your agent on how they answer this question, which is, if we needed to get this house under contract in 30 days, what would be the number that you suggest? I think that if you're talking with an agent and the idea of trying to get a listing, a lot of times that you'll get into a conversation where it's like, yeah, we can do that. And then, is the agent truly confident, or are they at that point saying, I'll take it at this, and then at that point we'll give it 3 weeks and we'll start looking at price reductions down the line? I'm guilty of it. I don't like it. It's not the conversation I like to have with sellers. I'd rather lose the job than and being 100% honest with you, versus trying to overpromise and then at that point working backwards. Our goal is to get you under contract. But I think those are the kinds of things when you're asking your agent kind of where their price point is, what are they looking at, what's it going to take to go. The good ones will be honest with you, and it may not necessarily align with the number of where you're at, but that just means, there's no good or bad news, in my opinion, when it comes down to feedback that we give our clients. It's just what's happening. It's the market news. So I'd rather be honest, even if it's not good, even if it's not news that my client would necessarily like. The idea is that it's honest based on what we're seeing. And then the decision comes down to whether, is this the right market for us? Is it the right time? And that really depends on a variety of different things in regards to what are you trying to accomplish. Because on the flip side of this, if you're having to sell and then you're buying something, this is you're in a pretty decent position where you're able to get a really great price for your home if you price it well. And then at the same point that you've got some negotiation when, at the end of it, you've only had 30% of homes selling at their list price. That means that sellers have been willing to negotiate on the other end. So sometimes it's that understanding that the total, what's happening in the complete journey, where you may have perceivably lost here, but won on the other side, that it all kind of balances out, I think sometimes is also hard to grasp. So anyway, it's, really looking at, your overall market picture, making the best decision for yourself. And at that point, asking, being open to critical analysis, and honest feedback, both from buyers that are seeing your house or from the agent that you're working with. But really understanding that you've got to interview probably two or three agents before you actually put your house on the market, to get a feeling of who is going to be the best fit for you and give you the best opportunity to transact. So anyway, I hope this is helpful. We are, it's definitely, this is not a bad market. I still feel that this is a very strong market. We're still seeing houses move pretty well. It's just different than it was 2 or 3 years ago. And it's just how we adjust to it and how we navigate it that will ultimately define our chances of actual success within it. So I hope you have a great day. And if you have any questions, please feel free to make comments below. If you found any value, we'd love you to subscribe to the channel. And if you're in the Greenville upstate area and curious to know more about the market or interested to interview us, we would love the opportunity. Our contact information is below. And I hope you have a great day.